Several of you have asked for a review of the LaIncelot Andrews Book of Common Prayer, which I try to call the Prayer Book 2009 because I think it deserves a place in the great chronology of prayer books along with all the others. And I thought that this week would be a particularly good time to do it, this being Passion Week, because of the wonderful resources it has for Holy Week. Now, of course, if you're interested in getting a copy and you don't have it yet, it's too late. But if the Lord delay his return, there may be another Holy Week. And I also thought that I would include in this video these other two books. Is it too bad a heresy, a blasphemy to say that these three books together are sort of a holy trinity? They're kind of all one needs for a devotional library if one likes the old language and the old calendar. The Book of Common Prayer 2009 is the product of LaIncelot Andrews Press, which is the publishing arm of something called, or at least was once called, the Fellowship of St. Dunstan. And I discovered it as the Fellowship of St. Dunstan's. Don't quite know how I did, because that was before YouTube and the like. But they published the St. Dunstan's Plainsong Psalter, which then it still does come in either a green Vivella or this hardback edition. The Vivella, which is kind of a 90s term for leather soft, the first edition had some mistakes, and they have been corrected by the guy who runs LaIncelot Andrews Press, John Connolly, about whom I know almost nothing except that he graduated from Yale, and he now styles himself Monsignor Johnny because that was on the return address of this most recent book that I bought from them. And I'll get back to what I emailed that about later. Anyway, this is quite a delightful book. If wishes for horses beggars would ride, I wouldn't mind it being a little bit sturdier in construction. On the other hand, I've had this particular copy for several years now, and I decided I would replace my old Vivella edition because I kind of like the fact that a hardback doesn't flop around. And we'll get back to that, but I want to mention why I'm including this book, and that is a friend of mine and I have often complained that the 2009 Book of Common Prayer is not the perfect book. Why not? It's nearly the perfect book. It doesn't have the Bible. It's this thick rather than this thick. So one has to have a separate volume for the daily office readings, which are, of course, included in this book. But I've said an awful lot about this book lately, so I'm not going to say too much except one thing, because I am saying this is a video about all you need for all times and all places. Remember, if you will, the devotional offices that are in this book, because, well, this is the devotional office book of my dreams. But what this book does have is, of course, a magnificent wealth of material for every day of the year, but of course particularly for the time as we approach Holy Week and Pascha. It even has the propers for the procession at Great Paschal Vespers. Not the rubrics for it, but at least the propers are listed here. So, this doesn't do it all. One also needs this. And of course, if one isn't going to celebrate Mass, one doesn't need that, perhaps. Particularly because this book, which is the second edition of the St. Ambrose Prayer Book, also published by LaIncelot Ambrose Press, is a marvel of brevity. I rather wish that one could, because I'm obsessive compulsive, wouldn't it be great if this book came in this binding? Are you listening, Monsignor Johnny? Anyway, it has an awful lot of material for such a small book. The morning offices, the daily offices rather, are not related at all much to the English or Benedictine prayer routines. They are much more like the devotional morning and evening prayer of the Orthodox Church for lay people, and that is probably not surprising because this is a book primarily for Western Orthodox Christians. And it has, as I mentioned, something I just really only discovered recently, basically all the ordinary of the Holy Mass of St. Tikhon, the Mass that kind of is the crown jewel of, in some ways, of the argument that, yes, Anglicanism is Orthodox, and also the Latin Mass, the Canon of St. Gregory, although I have Roman Catholic friends who say it's truncated too much, and it has also the proper prefaces, so some propers. If you follow the arguments between the Tridentine and Vatican II liturgy about the importance of the prayers at the foot of the altar, you'll understand why those things can be important to some people. It also has, and this is the thing particularly good for Louis, of course, the Way of the Cross. And it has as well, if I remember correctly, it's back here at the back, lots of litanies. Yes, A Visit to the Nativity Crèche, the two great Franciscan devotions that Francis kind of got cranked up so we wouldn't all have to go to Bethlehem. We could do these devotions in our own little tin cans. It also has, if I can find it, it's in here, I know it is. I put the ribbon there on purpose and then I forgot that I did. Devotions to St. Joseph, and I'm making this video on the Feast of St. Joseph, so that seems appropriate. Devotions to St. Joseph seem to be becoming more common, but they're fairly rare compared, of course, to devotions to the Blessed Virgin. And there are lots of litanies and other things in here, but I'm not going to go too much into that because you asked for this book. And as I say, this book is quite delightful. It has a very rich presentation of the daily office with a lot of Old Testament mechanicals that are not, for instance, in the 28 book, even. Antiphons, more antiphons than in the 28 book. The hymns to the Blessed Virgin and benediction. The Psalter, as I say, is here. I haven't found any mistakes in it. And the proper of the Mass. And we'll come back to that. We'll go to the back of the book first. It has, besides, of course, the things that one would expect the prayer book to have, a calendar of saints, a calendar of readings, some sort of surprising materials oodles and scads of opening sentences for morning and evening prayer. And I confess that I just almost never use them at morning and evening prayer. But what I find them really good for is short readings at the little offices, so that one has a variety. I realize, these are invariable readings in many books, but if one wants to spice up one's life with extra readings in the little offices, here they are. There's also this neat guide to the Mass and daily office, which is a kind of a liturgical, kind of rubrical introduction to the main parts of the book. And there's also, and I skipped over it, I had to mark a collection of historic canons. But of course, the centerpiece of this book is the Liturgy of St. Tikhon of Moscow. Is the kind of, see there, I told you so, for folks who say that the English liturgy is indeed Orthodox. Now, there are some changes from the 28 book and 1928 American book, and it is important that it is based on the American Book of Common Prayer, not the English Book of Common Prayer, although the Scots book works. And what it has that you won't find in, just the 28 book, are the introit, the gradual, and so some of the Alleluia, and the offertory prayers, the communion prayer, and the post-communion prayers. Oh, and of course, there's the last gospel. And as I mentioned, it has a marvelously rich set of lections for Passion Week, Holy Week, and Pascha. And I could easily get lost in here. But, for instance, we'll look just briefly at Maundy, Thursday. Oh, wait, no, that's not Mr. Toad. That's a helicopter. Earlier today, Mr. Toad came over. Remember Mr. Toad from the old days? We pray for Mr. Toad. Maybe that is Mr. Toad. Guess I see a writer engine and not. Anyway, it's gone now. All the stuff for Maundy, Thursday in the old calendar. I particularly am glad that it contains the old solemn collects, because the solemn collects in some of the new prayer books are sort of universal in their understanding of what we should pray for. And if we don't need any faith, if we don't need the salvation of Christ, if we don't need his sacrifice on the cross, then, well, there it is. The new fire procession, the lessons for the great vigil of Easter. And then, I love it that the liturgy of the Mass actually comes at the end of Holy Saturday, and then after the liturgy of the Mass, which has the prayers at the bottom, at the foot of the altar and the light, then you get into the rest. It's not only means that these pages don't put as much stress on the book, but just a nice symbolic thing. Anyway, I thought that might be this might be a nice time to introduce this book. Well, getting back to the to the emails with Monsignor Johnny, one of the things that they published between the St. Dunstan's Psalter and the Book of Common Prayer was something I think they called the St. Dunstan's Noted Missal. And it came out in little bits and pieces, and I bought them all at one time, and they were spiral bound, and I bound them all together and got 2 copies of the Mass itself and put it in the middle of them, and then when this book came out, I don't remember who I gave them to, but I thought it would be nice to have all the music for Holy Week, so I emailed saying, you know, is this really out, and what's it going to be like? And I never got an answer. And so there are a lot of things about Father John that remain a mystery. Maybe he's the fabled Prester John of the searches of the Middle Ages. But whatever is the full truth about Father John, Monsignor Johnny, what he does give us is quite delightful. And if you are interested in the old year, I mean, the sun goes around the earth, or the earth goes around the sun, take your choice. I don't really care. It doesn't make any difference in how I live my life. But it goes whichever way that happens. It happens once a year, not every 3 years. And I think the 1-year cycle of Eucharistic readings works well. I mean, this 1-year cycle of collects, for instance, in a way that the newer lectionary doesn't. You may disagree in the comments if you would like, and if you do comment, I would of course be grateful. And as always, I thank you for watching.